The winter of 2023 was spent sitting in my record room for 2 months, writing a book of poems that to celebrate my wife's life in a book of written words. At a time of great loss, grief, and true sadness. This time in my life was my question. Do I destroy myself? Or do I want to be fully human and get a contemplative education and use mindfulness to get through this part of my life? I chose to live. When I chose life, there was a driving force of nature that celebrated my rugged individualism. Art became what saved me. Thinking now to hold space for a true story, I remembered when the morning came at the end of January 2023. I awoke with a phone call from Sadie, my wife's daughter, that my wife had died on the way to the doctor's appointment in the back of a Medicaid taxi. She died on January 28, 2023, and left me in a world alone, destitute. While she suffocated when her trach clogged in the back of the taxi. She is alive in my life experience and left with all I knew of unconditional love. Sadness is still overwhelming. That day changed my life and made me a better person because I really had to face facts. I lost my job, which was taking care of my wife. I lost my housing. It wasn't an option to stay. And I lost my wife, Tracy, of 9 years. When then that day was realized, I understood what I was going through was grief. And it has a process only unto myself. To this day, I understand how brave I needed to be and how courageous I was to carry on and continue with school and honor her memory by being my best person. Being Peace on Main Street is a product of a pact I made with Tracy to always do for others. Take on the role of a helper and create peace in my life, community, and relationships. I made it clear I would never go back to being a selfish, ignorant, feeding my starving ego kind of person. I decided to study mindfulness and create art that reflects my space hippie baptismal mythology. I decided to love every human being equally and love myself fully. I understand now what I was doing was making myself available to be an instrument of peace and compassion. Taking my art to the street and talking about it like my art teacher said to do if I wanted to understand my art. My quest for equality was now realized. That is when I started going on the street and selling my art. I started talking to people and getting a feel for what it means to be a part of people instead of just being separate from people. From my understanding, life is people and everyone matters because life is precious. Equality, emptiness, loving kindness, and mercy were my mindfulness tools. Being Peace on Main Street was born with the mindfulness of peace work, inclusivity, and hope for a better world where everybody plays a part. Welcome became my one-word invitation because any real conversation includes an invitation. My role as an artist was applied to my community with the understanding community reflects society, and I want a better society, so I need to work with community. So I created a website, YouTube channel, and social media for Being Peace on Main Street to get people involved in my community. My magical idea was to promote that one peaceful person can change all of society. Poetry mixtapes were provided to the community along with wellness practices and healthy human behavior on the street. I embodied the work of Thich Nhat using bibliomancy to read the teachings daily. When I started to look deeply into people and use my loving kindness powers to relate to the humanness of the public, understanding that if I could lead by example to children and promote goodwill and fellowship in adults, I would be a public figure of peace, to honor Tracy. Being peaceful poet and peace activist, I saw a lot of people suffering on the street. I also fell in love with humanity and wanted to relieve the suffering of people just by listening to them. I tried to understand people's thought patterns, and humility was my other tool in the toolbox to understand humanity. People would come to me just to talk about stuff and things and get advice. And I would console them with positivity and kindness. I was a friend to teenagers, young adults, and parents. I would get to know them through their dogs and share with them the wisdom of life experiences, all the while using peace as a platform for meaning and purpose in the lives of people who had never even thought about it. Peace comes from within an individual regardless of their life. Qualities such as tranquility, patience, respect, compassion, kindness, self-control, courage, moderation, forgiveness, equanimity, and the ability to see the big picture that can promote peace in an individual. Understanding that no one can give you inner peace. You need to create that peace within. I am an artist, so I can create peace in my own life by providing it to the public. Also, people need peace as resolution to function in life. Peace is essential to a well-lived, purposeful life. Most people I see are dragging their corpses already defeated by life without a need to awaken a world of the living. I saw this disconnect between haves and have-nots, the sick, lonely, and downtrodden. And on the other side, the ones who live life fully free of society's chains. The mindfulness of interbeing of all people creates the meaning of emptiness in my peace work. Emptiness is equality, which would be a way to understand people's liberation or lack thereof liberation. Thich Nhat Hanh explains the 3 doors of liberation being emptiness, signlessness, and aimlessness. When I applied this teaching to my street artwork, I became liberated from my old ways of thinking. There was an understanding within me to share this liberation with the world and remove ignorance and selfishness and needless suffering. Again, life is people, and it takes peace to survive in a world of ignorance and selfishness. Society is an extension of us as people. I cannot condemn society as a whole or make it the opposition, but I can write poetry to critique it. The poet is in the service of saying it, whatever it needs to be said at any given time in history. The poet is also responsible for not creating socialist dribble that nobody wants to read. As a poet, I straddle the line by writing the truth of what I observe and witness. On the street, I can articulate in conversation the things that I find sad or trite in the truth about people, along with the glimmers and beauty that street life brings each day. Hundreds of hours sitting on the street in my chair talking to people, I learned that people are amazing. Society is created each day by what parents teach their children. A society is made up of people, their cultures, their values, their lifestyles, and their political and economic conditions. Being Peace on Main Street.